Can you say hi, Marnie? No, she's not gonna do that. Okay, goodbye. Hi friends, and welcome back or welcome to my channel. As you can see, I'm filming from a different location today. This is my daughter's bedroom. Hence the animals on the wall. Although maybe I'll just stick to this spot. It's kind of cute. Anyway, hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah, and on this channel we talk about all things music ed, especially ways to make your classroom more meaningful and joyful for you and your students. In today's video, we're talking all about how to teach your students how to sight read, whether it's vocal or instrumental music. And I'm specifically going to be talking about sight reading strategies that are most appropriate for grades 2, 3, and 4. These are strategies that I have developed after working with students in that particular age range on sight reading music for singing and for recorder or barred instruments. I know some of the pitfalls that students fall into when they're learning how to sight read and some of the frustrations that they encounter, so we'll be able to address those as well. First thing you might be asking yourself is why teach sight reading to students in those grade levels. Whether or not your students are planning to go on to advanced auditions or elite opportunities in the future in music, these are important skills for them to have because they help build independent musicianship. And that's one of my main goals for my students. Can they be musical? Can they be creative? Can they imagine, create, perform, respond, connect independently? And giving them these sight reading skills is part of that. We all want to be independent thinkers, right? We all want to foster that in our students. And teaching sight reading skills is a great way to do that. If you are looking to try to implement some of these strategies in your classroom, you want some songs to sight read, either to sing or to play on recorder or barred instruments or Boomwhackers, I have a set of 6 winter songs called Snowflake Stroll in my TPT store. I will link it below. It also comes with a set of Google Slides that you can use to do whole class teaching or preparation beforehand. So definitely check that out in the description box. It's a great way to get students started with instruments and learning how to sight read in a very scaffolded, organized way. Stick with me here because we are going to go through 10 sight reading strategies that I pull from all the time when I am helping students learn how to sight read vocal music or music that they can play on instruments. So 10 sight reading strategies that you can use with your students in the middle to upper elementary grades. Here we go. The first thing that I ask students to do when they see something new, a new recorder piece, a new xylophone piece, a new Soul Me song, is to scan it. And what that means is moving your eyes through the music once or twice. What are they looking for? That's something else. You don't just want to give them a task because they're going to look at it and then, okay, now what? What was the goal? The goal there is to see what they notice. And that could be different for that's going to be different for each student. I notice there's a lot of black on the page, okay? I notice that there are 4 measures. Do your students know what measures are when they're in 2nd grade? They might notice that. I noticed that the song ends on a whole note, or the song ends on a C. There are all kinds of things they might notice, but scanning is quickly moving your eyes through the piece once or twice and seeing what you notice. Are there lyrics? Are there no words? Just things that might stand out to them, because you can always come back to those things later in another strategy. So the first thing they want to do is scan it. Move their eyes through it once or twice. The second strategy that I have my students do is speak or clap the rhythm. So we take away the lyrics, we take away the melody, and we just speak or clap the rhythm. We might try it flat out after having scanned it once. I might specifically say, all right, we're going to practice the rhythm together after we've each practiced it in our head a few times. So take 30 seconds and speak the rhythm in your head, or tap it quietly out with a silent 2-finger clap just in your lap. Once students have done that, we're ready to try it together. And then I can address any discrepancies or correct any mistakes before we add another layer. Third strategy. If your students are familiar with solfege, you could ask them to practice the solfege in their head. And you could say ahead of time, this song only has sol and mi. You could say this song has sol, mi, la. And that way they at least have this sort of bank that they're going to draw from. You could remind them, or you could point out in the first measure what the different solfege syllables are, and then have them just kind of finish decoding from there. If If students don't know solfege yet, you might ask them to look for things like high and low, or high, middle, and low, or where is the highest part, where is the lowest part. Things like contour or shape are also helpful here too. Along those same lines, can they identify any familiar patterns? Can they identify a sol, sol, mi? Can they identify sol, mi, sol? This is where one of the pitfalls comes in that I wanted to talk about. So a very common interval that students are familiar with just by ear, and this is a universal thing, it's not just in America, is na, na, na. It's that na, 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 na. It's that minor third interval. One thing that I've noticed when students are sight reading, especially sol mi or sol mi la songs, is that they aren't reading what's on the paper. They're expecting to hear na na na. They're expecting to hear a sol mi sol somewhere in there. Even if, say, the pattern is sol sol mi or mi sol sol, that interval of the descending minor third is so ingrained that they will often just assume that that's going to be something that they're going to see in the music. And a sol mi song might not actually have that exact pattern in it. So when you are teaching songs with sol mi, naming the solfege ahead of time like this is going to be very helpful to, again, clear up discrepancies, fix mistakes, asking students if they're singing sol sol mi, but the shape of the melody looks like this, then you're going to want to fix that. You're going to want to make sure that the shape of their voice matches the shape of the notes. Now, if students' goal is to play a song on an instrument like recorders or barred instruments or boomwhackers, you may want to have them sing it first. In fact, you are going to want to have them sing it first. So if you are teaching students a new recorder song, and even if it doesn't have words, just pick a neutral syllable or use solfege, have them sing it ahead of time or sing it for them. If you sing a song for someone, that doesn't necessarily mean you're taking away all opportunities for sight reading and literacy. Singing the song for them ahead of time is not going to take away their opportunity to be literate. You're not giving away the answers. You're providing them a model. And for students as like in second grade, third grade, fourth grade, this is something that is going to help springboard them into more musical independence. You don't want to give them cold turkey something just that they can't be successful with. And if they're, especially younger students, if they're just learning how to sight read, if you're putting something new in front of them and they're looking at all of these different aspects, contour, rhythm, pitch, high and low, it's basically contour, I guess, but they're looking at all these different things, interpreting all these markings on the page, you don't just want to toss them in and say, okay, figure it out. You want to be able to scaffold this. So singing the song for students ahead of time is a good thing. It also helps students have an oral reference when they are learning how to play it themselves and they hear what they're playing and they play it back or they sing it back in their heads or they recall what you have sung to them. It's another opportunity for them to fix their own mistakes. And that's something to build up to, but having that oral reference is part of the literacy experience. It's not giving away answers. Strategy number 5 is to name the notes ahead of time. Name them. You can name them in rhythm if you want, or you can just go through and say, this is a, this is a, this is a, this is a. And I think it's especially helpful if you're going to be sight reading songs that have like 3 or more pitches in them. So if you're singing a sol mi la song in the key of C, you're going to be doing G, E, and A. And if students need to be reminded what the notes are, you can use whatever strategy that you have taught, like the mnemonic devices for the lines and spaces, or you can, if you have any visuals in your room, like a visual scale or a big xylophone poster or something, those are really handy too. If you don't have one, I would just recommend making one with just different pieces of construction paper, just getting progressively smaller. Just make a big xylophone to reference in your room. It's very helpful. But knowing that, okay, well, the highest note must be, the middle note must be, the lowest note must be. So in this measure, what do we have? Again, helping them arrive at their own independence through these scaffolded strategies. Strategy number 6 is to finger or air play the song. And this is more helpful for recorder than xylophone, I suppose, or any barred instrument, unless you have like print out paper xylophones in front of them where they can use a finger to tap the notes. That's just like air playing the xylophone, I guess. Or if they have xylophones in front of them, I guess they can just tap the air. But with recorder, this is good too, or band, they are going to finger or play the notes as you, the teacher, could be singing the song. You could be naming the notes in rhythm. And then when you're done, you might ask them to self-assess. Think about how many you got right. Think about if there were any notes that you kept getting wrong. How are you going to fix those? Strategy number 7 is listen to a model, which I think now looking back is like kind of similar to sing the song for them. But this strategy could be something that students might ask you for as you're circulating while they're working on the learning of the song. So if you have students in stations, or if you have students working independently or in pairs or whatever, you might ask students to raise their hands if they want to listen to the model again. And this is a better opportunity to assess students individually. So you might say, I'm going to sing this song. You need to point to the notes as I'm singing them, point to the words or point to whatever as I'm singing them, because you may find that there are certain students who just aren't able to track that, which isn't to say they don't know the song, like couldn't sing it back to you. I mean, these skills aren't mutually exclusive, but students asking you to be a model for them as they point or as they finger is a good opportunity for you to assess students on a more individual level, right? You're not going to be able to catch you're not going to be able to assess every student in a big group as you're doing all these whole class strategies. You can't be looking at everyone all the time. You can't be looking at everyone's fingers all the time. In these small group situations, that's when you can do more individual assessment. Strategy number 8 kind of goes hand in hand with that, and that is to sing it in your head. So once the students have internalized it enough, once maybe you've played it for them or you've sung it for them, you might ask them to sing it in their head. And if this is a whole group strategy, you might point to the song as they are singing it in their head, or as they're audiating. That's a good vocab word for them, as they're audiating the song. So you're not just maybe passively standing there, especially in these younger grades, 2, 3. You're going to say, okay, you're going to sing the song in your head, and I'm going to track it as you are singing it. Strategy number 9 is to ask a peer for feedback. When I used to teach recorder in 3rd grade, I haven't taught recorder since 2019. Oh my gosh. I guess technically it was 2020 and then we, stopped going to school, but wow. So when I used to teach recorder and, it used to be 3rd, but then we did 4th because it was a pre-band year. So when I used to teach recorder, I would let students have the option of working in small groups or individually. We would spread out around the room, and that was great and all. But the advantage to working in that small group or in pairs was to play for your friend and then ask them for feedback. And again, you want to make sure that they know exactly what kind of feedback they can give. So not just, that sounded good. Why did that sound good? Did you hear all the notes? Were their fingers in the right place? We're not talking about the technical things like tugging the notes or using the right amount of air. That's not part of this sight reading strategy. That's part of the performance aspect. But letting students know what kind of feedback you can give. Giving or asking a peer for feedback can be, again, a little more motivating, or just can sort of convey give a different vibe to what they're doing than maybe a teacher standing over them, telling them what needs to be improved on. Or, just certain students respond better, I think, when they get that feedback from a friend or a peer. And strategy number 10 is to start at the middle or the end. This is another pitfall that I see when I ask students to play something or sight read something. I'll want to just hear measure 3, and they'll be like, well, no, I need to start from the beginning. In my mind, as a professional musician, I'm thinking, just jump right in. It's like opening up a book and just starting to read it. But students often feel, in my experience, that they need to start from the beginning and keep going. Start from the beginning and keep going. But unfortunately, what happens is they start and they get 1 or 2 measures in or 1 or 2 beats in and go, I have to start over. They have to start over. And they never get to this part. They never hear the whole thing all the way through. So it becomes very disjointed. And I can't really identify what the issue is besides just the stumbling block that they're having at the beginning. And unfortunately, that stumbling block can sometimes like get magnified in their eye, because if they can't even get here, how are they supposed to do this whole other thing, like finish the song? So reinforcing, telling your students that it is okay and you should be practicing the parts of the song that you think that you need the most improvement on. You don't always have to start at the beginning and go all the way through. If you think the last measure is tricky, just practice that. If you think measure 2 is tricky, just practice that. And music out of context like that can be a little strange, because they have this very linear thing in their head, and you're asking them to just jump in and try this measure or fix that thing. So something that you might do to get ahead of that is, when you are doing whole class sight reading, you might teach them the song by ear and then say, okay, I'm going to make a mistake in measure 3. Ask them to identify the mistake, and then you're going to isolate that measure and just sing it, or just play it, or have students just sing it or just play it. You want to normalize that and encourage that, instead of the idea that, well, I messed up at measure 3, I have to go back to the beginning and do it all over again. No, you don't. Whew, we made it. Thank you for sticking with me. 10 strategies that you can use in grades 2, 3, and 4, maybe 5, to build independent musicianship in your students. These aren't necessarily sequential. I mean, the first few, I suppose, were. So you scan it, you do the rhythm, you do something with the notes, and then the others you just kind of like pick and choose as you need to. These are things that you pull from. It's kind of like adding more salt and seasoning to a recipe. You know, you don't have to always add more of everything in equal parts. You add the things that the recipe needs. You add the strategy that your students need. You can do 4 of these with the whole class, and then pick and choose from the other ones as you circulate and help small groups or individuals with their sight reading. That is it for this video. I hope that you found some of these strategies helpful. If you end up using them in your classroom, or if you have any like addendums you want to add, drop them in the comments below, or reach out to me on Instagram. I respond to DMs there all the time, so you can find me there. And if you found this video helpful, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. That helps other teachers like you find and learn from my content. I'm also going to plug my email list. If you want to be a part of the ADM community, the A Different Musician community, sign up for my email list below. I send 1, sometimes 2 emails a week with different music teacher tips, tricks, and advice, teacher toolbox chat, some anecdotes, the occasional freebie. If you think that's something you would be interested in, you can sign up for that below. Thank you for watching, and happy music making.